So you're asking me a couple more questions. Apparently, you haven't got the hint yet. So I'm gonna clarify for you who are out there in the unseen, who is insistent upon me talking. Basically, how do you check your chakra points? Well, let's just say there's the pineal gland, right, which is one of your entry points that you guys have as a spiritual being. You can bend light, so your pineal gland becomes one doorway. They like your pineal gland visualization, and usually your visualization is based off of what you have in your mind, your train of thoughts, and that's usually driven by your feelings, your heart. How you feel. So essentially what they do is they just sit there and they dump all this trauma on you until it reaches your heart, until it starts to basically bubble up, and it shows up as frustration, it shows up as scattered-mindedness, it shows up as anger, it shows up as agitation, it shows up as basically distortion. Because you become somebody that's always trying to explain something to somebody, and there's nobody there. It's just you. It's just them and you and your own mind, and them using your own light inside of you, bending your light, causing you to activate. So you're using and functioning in your higher self, and they know this, but you don't. So you start to get frustrated because your higher self is pulling you into a place that you're not necessarily ready for, built for, aware of, or necessarily even tuned into, especially with them, doing all they can, which is working through all the means that they can. And they usually attempt to not just instill beliefs inside of you that are going to distort you, like, possession, but also they oppress you, which means they constantly feed your mind, the narrative, or drag you to think it, or drag you to feel it. So you're always at a point in a place where you shouldn't be, and you yourself are put there, by your own lack of being able to influence these aspects of your light being, your spiritual self. And so essentially what I've noticed is the pineal gland is one. So it's basically learning that you're a supercomputer. That's how you get access of your pineal gland, learning that essentially you can visualize everything and anything, and not thinking that there's anything there that you don't see, because anything that was put there for you to see was put there for you to see. Doesn't necessarily mean that you should be seeing it or viewing it, or stuck on it, because again, it's about understanding that you're trying to build patterns, and patterns that lead to negative or basically profitable behavior, essentially. So in this pineal gland perception, say you don't notice that you're a higher being, and every time your pineal gland visualizes, say well, what they'll do is they'll watch your behavior, and then they'll get you to actually think about the things that you're doing that are wrong. So that way your mind is seated with that belief, and it's like a self-judgment. So you're sitting there judging yourself, thinking that you did something wrong, and putting the weight of something on your shoulders of something being wrong. And it's not by choice, but it's by perception. They basically get you inside, they test you, they put the idea, the belief, and they ask you inside, what do you think? And you yourself are trying to be honest with yourself. And since you're full of doubt, probably, or just counting on those factors that they've already signed themselves to influence you, which are like positions of it's like saying they know your fears, and they know your particular direction of wanting to see yourself in a certain light. So based on those, they're able to push you in directions that you then negate, or stop, or basically don't even notice at first, and until little by little, that, like you put it, is that thought creeps in, that perception pops up, that moment, the situation, everything lines up perfect, and you're given an opportunity now to act on it, and thus you form habits, routines. But essentially that's the pineal gland, and most people are easily driven by that. The next one becomes the attention, which your eyes are driven by, and most people are driven by that one as well. That's a very famous one. Everybody's running to the TV, to the show, to the next thing to look at, to observe, to have thoughts and feelings and emotions, because basically, the visual information, translates and becomes all these other breakdowns of all these other aspects, because visual information takes in a lot of information. And on the surface level, they love it when you distract yourself with just like basically it's like selfish perception, which is just like looking at or becoming obsessed with looking at body parts, or looking at particular styles, or looking at anything can be weaponized. There's no right or wrong. You could look at freaking flowers all the time, And all it takes is really just you, eventually adding hate to that thought, to that perception, to that perspective, to that, whatever it is essentially. So I mean, the can you lose at any turn? That's essentially what that means, is can you find yourself doing the wrong thing? Can you find yourself a mistake that could possibly happen, or that could be made, and that's essentially, I mean, some say live and think in certain ways so it develops your mind, so it reaches for preparedness rather than, last minuteness. So there's certain aspects that do work to your convenience, but there's other aspects that don't, So it's about knowing how to use the worry trigger that you have, the problem mindset that you have, these perspectives of yourselves in a way that actually benefits you rather than benefiting, what is gave you the tools, but to its benefit mostly. It's not always necessarily given to you to know how to use it. It's up to you to figure out how it is that things are being benefit off of. So essentially, you're basically like seated with all these things that will require you to think, that will require you to plan, but the best way to learn is through action. So there's really no need to plan or plot, but it is a back door, because if you could plan and plot and look ahead, which is basically just accessing your body's mechanism of bending light, and if they can get you to believe that you can shy away from it, or that it's difficult or challenging, then you shy away from it, and thus you equip somebody else with your weapons rather than you yourself being equipped with those weapons. They become the things that later on you have to face. Later on, people bring you and you see it as your enemy rather than your friend, and everything is essentially you. It's just your higher self being utilized and pushed, or you pushed into your higher self, and having to then, fathom and create a thought pattern and perspective. And when you have all those triggers already in your mind, or all those boundaries, or all those limitations and walls that limit you, then it's easy for something to put you like essentially in a maze, and you're the mouse, and they have the cheese at the end, of the perspective, of what it is, because it's just a maze with cheese at the center, and you're just released from any point of the maze to get to the cheese, So, but that's one perspective. So again, that's the eyes, and the eyes, the best way to be able to keep those on check would be to focus on your nose rather than looking out into the world and giving them the opportunity to weaponize your eyes against you. Weaponize your own eyes for you by having them tuned in to always looking at the tip of your nose. Make that your favorite spot. Make that the spot where you lust, where you hate, where you love, where you think any of those feelings, if you have them, just to begin with. If you don't, then don't even head in that direction. Just particularly focus and keep, calmness, relaxation, basically go in that direction, And the next one after that becomes your mouth, the next gate that you have to watch. And that one, like I said, that one's based off the word patterns, or basically the emotions that you attempt to convey, because usually most people live trying to, either convey emotional states to each other and to others so they can connect. And so these words become very, very important, and that's another way that they muddy you up, when you have words that aren't conveying your emotions, that aren't focused on the heart and the love, then you get lost in talking for absolutely no reason and wasting people's time, and people seeing you and being able to make you feel like you're wasting their time, because essentially the words that you're bringing them, I mean, it's not being authentic. It's not from the heart, it's just mindless thoughts, mindless thinking, mindless talking, mindless sounding. And so, that's how some people measure whether they even want to be in your vicinity. They'll just hear your words. Are they coming from the heart, or are you just blabbering? Because again, and that's also how you're targeted, I mean, if you're talking from the heart all the time, then you're an easy target, easy to find, easy to hurt, easy to get you to fight for something, because people that are talking from the heart, they're being honest, they're being truthful. So, and they're trying to get you to maintain the coherence with them. And most people show up, and the first thing they want to do is mess up their coherence. So the first thing they do is they act like as if they can't connect with the person, or they distract the conversation in the moment from being focused on their coherence and their connection, and it becomes about trying to solve some imaginary problem. Or some problem, as if it's like a problem that you can fix for the whole world. It seems macro or micro, so it's very easy, it's very simple, it's just a very small problem, figure it out, and most people jump into things like that trying to come up with answers or whatever it is, and after that, So that's the vocal aspect of the vocal chakra. From there it becomes your heart. So essentially, is most people are always trying to understand the connections that they have with others, and this connection is essentially a heart connection. Knowing that the heart knows essentially the relationship between body and mind, and so it's the one that mediates it. That's where you yourself experience this consciousness or this spirituality or this energetic body or this chakra side of yourself. It all starts and begins with the heart. So that's why it's about maintaining coherence. Knowing that with every person and every situation, every moment, all they really want to know and actually experience is your heart. Because your heart is the most powerful, energetic producing or magnetic producing, electromagnetic producing. It's basically a super, super strong battery, and if you don't realize it, but if you understood that you yourself absorb, energy, I mean, essentially you like to feel, you feed off of it. It does something to you particularly. It's why you want to go around people and feel their hearts, feel connection, because it does something special, something particular, something unique, and it takes somebody knowing and being aware to actually experience it, or else your mind just distracts you with endless ideas of what it could have been, and essentially it was just somebody's heart you felt. It was like that heart coherence. It's coherence pretty much amongst people, and then from there it goes to the stomach. Now what factors or am I like driving myself by to provide myself nutrition? Is it always based on fluids? Is it always based on solids? And have I trimmed it all down to the very specifications of detail? And am I constantly focusing on levels of sugar, levels of carbohydrates, levels of salt? I mean, what variations or what different characteristics of aspects for my approach to this, thing that I might not even start off doing correctly, but it's about beginning and then knowing that everything from there, it's about really tuning yourself in to actually being committed and interested in the particular aspect that is essentially, you serving you. And if you want to be the best to anyone else, you have to first be the best to you, or else every person that meets you is going to see you, and based on the standard that you have for you, decide whether they would like to be around you or not. And most people, like I said, take advantage of these perspectives. People with love are more open, more willing, more simply interested in living, because they're about the feeling, to get an experience and feel. It's a heart thing, versus the people that are like mind driven, they're more essentially about the chemical and the chemistry, driven by let's go eat, let's go drink, let's go find some way of entertaining ourselves, let's go basically, how do you say, find something that we could, kind of like distract ourselves with in some sense, so so and that's basically another aspect of your being, is knowing that you have to manage your distractions. And so distractions is something that we seek out in some way or others, and at times it's more about being able to leave that capacity of knowing that a distraction is a good thing, especially when you have multitude of things to do, because it'll bring you to prepare for the next thing. So it's all about how you handle and manage it, but everything essentially works. It's just about understanding, remembering, and recognizing that, so that you don't stop until you get to that point. So, and that's basically like the core, the center, your stomach right there. I mean, that's a big part of it, right? There's a big center of life, essentially a big drive for us. And then from there you get to your root chakra, and that essentially becomes more of how do I put that? Well, the root chakra, I guess that would be different. I haven't really given it too much thought at the moment. I'm gonna approach it more surface like. So the way I'd go with that one is mostly practicing being present. And then that just means that when you sit down, you feel the weight of yourself completely, undisturbed. And so that's being present means you feel your energetic body and you feel no disturbances. And so with the root chakra, that's the whole point for that one right now, would be just to maintain the pressure and the weight and the gravity of your presence on your root chakra, because that'll keep you grounded essentially. So I mean, yeah. So that's what you guys wanted to get explained. So there you go. Hopefully that was able to help you guys out. You know, um, yeah, and like I said again, it's all about activating your energetic body, which means the same kind of feeling that you feel when you're taking that diaphragmatic breath versus that automated breath. It's basically that you want to practice in your body. So it's like learn how to move like a wave of energy, like a worm, starting from your root chakra all the way up to the top of your crown chakra, and then learn how to pretty much, play with that. It's like if you can move your presence within your body, and you can move into all these chakra centers of yourself, practice basically moving yourself between these chakra centers so you can better establish, your energetic connection with yourself internally. Because essentially these have been the disturbances that they utilize to convince you or pitch you ideas like leaking energy nonsense, or like basically everything to make you feel like it's you who are doing something wrong. And it isn't that, it's just you who's thinking wrong and responding to the wrong things. Because essentially, you shouldn't allow yourself to think wrong. And if there are things that are, getting, certain aspects of yourself, it's like kind of minimizing that aspect, of yourself, wanting so much control over it. And it's rather more being comfortable learning the measure that's showing up there to basically gauge for you and help you acquire something for yourself that maybe wasn't there before. But you always got to seek to find the advantage in everything for yourself, because it's already there.